Welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with a North Queensland Cowboys legend. He also won a State of Origin series for Queensland, the Mighty Maroons. It's the one and only Malcolm John Doyle. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good, brother. How are you?
Oh, bloody fantastic. Thanks heaps for coming on the show. I trust you had a good new year. What you been up to?
Yeah, no, had a good quiet one. I live in Mount Isa in northwest Queensland, so there's a place out there called Gregory Downs, and
Okay.
I tell all my friends and family that haven't been out there that it's literally paradise in the middle of nowhere.
Beautiful,
So
beautiful.
we spent New Year's there camping, and it's actually freshwater spring that comes from Papua New Guinea.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so yeah, it's amazing. It's beautiful fresh water. It runs all year round, never stops. So it's amazing.
What's the temperatures like up there, man? We're having a freezing summer here in Christchurch, New Zealand. It's never
Yeah.
been colder in like decades. So what's it like over there at the moment?
Man, Eyes is hot.
Yeah.
Over 40 every day.
Oh, you're
Um,
kidding.
yeah, but this is our summer, so it's we've got a lot of storms and that sort of coming and brewing around the area. So it's getting hot, but unfortunately we're sort of getting the thunder and the lightning, but not much of the rain.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So you'd probably want a bit of rain, wouldn't you? Just go sit
Yeah.
outside and it just cool off.
Oh, and honestly, it's probably one of the most beautiful parts of the world after rain
Yep.
because,
Yep.
all the foliage, everything's green and beautiful, and then you got the red dirts and the contrast colors. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful place, especially when the creeks are flowing and stuff like that. There's so many places to swim and take the kids and have fun. So it's a beautiful part of the world.
Mate, that sounds ideal, mate. That's awesome. Except the heat, I'd probably get heat stroke. I went to Brisbane when I was about 10 and it was a really hot summer. We're talking
Mm.
1996 and I
Yeah.
like flaked out. I was gone. I actually like passed out. It was too
Well,
hot.
we're in Brizzy now, and honestly, I was just saying to my wife and my mate, I wish Mount Isa was like this at the moment.
Yeah.
Like it's hot here, but it's doable. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. So sitting at the back, there was a bit of a breeze blowing, and it was nice. But yeah, in Mount Isa, and like the sun doesn't go down till probably 8 o'clock at night, and it's just hot all the way through.
Mate, you can keep it, honest.
Yeah.
Right, my man. I hear you're going in for a bit of surgery on your shoulder. Is this an old rugby league injury you're finally getting fixed up?
Yeah, finally, I'm getting a shoulder replacement. So
Wow.
yeah, so going to take the old one out and put a new one in,
Oh,
and then
good. You'll be loving it.
I'll be making a comeback. Nah,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no.
That's the one. Put me in, coach.
Nah, yeah. So
Oh,
it's an old injury. I first heard it back in 2000. It's
okay.
sort of it all blew apart in the tackle. So I just sort of been persevering. I had a full reconstruction, everything back then, and I've just been persevering ever
Yeah,
since. And it's just too much now. Like I literally can't do anything with my right arm properly. So it's at a
yeah,
point now where I've got to get it done. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Pretty proactive. 24 years later, not bad. Not
Yeah.
bad.
Well, I've because I've got to get my knees done as well. I've been on a wait list for public.
Right.
So I went and did a medical when I was 40. I'm 48 this year. So I went and did a
Okay.
medical when I was 40 because I played a couple of games, and that's when you know you're old when got to do the over 40s medical. Yeah, so then I did that, and I've been on a maintenance plan since for my knees and my shoulder. Um,
Okay.
but my shoulder's just gotten to where it's unbearable now. So I've been
Okay.
sleeping on the recliner out in the lounge room.
Uh,
So yeah,
yeah.
so I haven't been able to sleep in the bed with my wife and the kids for 5 months nearly.
All right.
Um, yeah, so it's like I said, it's at that point where it's I've got to get it done just for quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully once I get it done and I can get back into the gym and start doing some exercise and stay fit again,
That's the
which is
one.
what I'm most looking forward to is that and being able to play with my kids again.
Yeah, man. That's what
Yeah,
it's all about. Yeah, that's
yeah,
good stuff, man. Well, all the best for that. I hope
yeah,
it goes well with your recovery and all of that. So
yeah,
get back in the bed with the missus, mate. That's the way.
yeah. She might
Yeah.
want me back in there, brother.
Yeah, she's probably loving life, mate.
Hmm.
Right, my man, it's time to turn back the clock. Where did
Yeah.
you grow up? What was life like for a young John Doyle?
I grew up in Rockhampton. It's about 6 hours north of Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah, close to the coast. We're about 25, 30 minutes away from the coast. Um, but yeah, so I grew up there, did all my schooling there. I did all my primary school, high school. I was out of school for a year until I got the opportunity to go to the Cowboys.
Okay.
Um, but it sort of happened funny because I had, the Crushers when the South Queensland Crushers, I don't know if you remember when they came in.
Oh, yeah,
So
95. Yep.
yeah, so they were looking at me and also the Broncos and the
Okay.
Panthers. But the thing that all of them said was I was way too small.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had all the skills and that, but I was just way too small. I was only a little skinny little Aboriginal fella, see, tiny as. So so I had a whole year out of school in Rocky, and I went
Okay.
down to Redcliffe Dolphins for a trial for their
Right.
Colts. And they liked me straight away, Mark Murray. So straight away they said, "Yeah, we want you. We'll sign you." So I signed the contract with them, and a week before I was leaving to go to Redcliffe, the
Yeah.
Cowboys rang me up, and I said to them, I
Okay.
said, I've already done a deal with Redcliffe, and they said, "We'll leave it with us." So literally 3 days before I was getting on the bus to go to Redcliffe, it all came through where we changed it over. And instead of getting on the bus to go to Redcliffe, I got on the bus and went to Townsville.
Unbelievable. So that's 1995.
That was 96 in January 96.
96. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was after all your sort of junior football. So what
Yeah.
was the journey into starting your rugby league career as a young fella? Where did it all start? What age did you start playing? All that type of thing.
Um, well, my dad and my uncles and my grandfather were all footballers and boxers. So it was kind of a natural progression, you know what I mean? It was. So I did a lot of boxing all through my life with my uncle and that as well. So it was kind of either or. I love footy way too much, so I used to watch it with my father all the time. And way back in the day when everyone used to watch the Origin and you wore your maroon or your blue and you
Yeah.
screamed and yelled the house down and all that sort of stuff, and cars would be driving past beeping the horn. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's sort of the era I grew up watching footy. So it was contagious, you just wanted to be a part of it.
Okay. All
Yeah, so
right,
that's
man.
yeah, so that's pretty much how it sort of happened. My dad was a mad Dragons fan.
Really?
Yeah, he passed away 4 years ago now, a couple of days ago. But he was a
Okay.
mad Dragons fan to a point where we did Dragons shirts at his funeral, pallbearers and
Yeah.
stuff. We
Oh
even did
wow.
a St. George Dragons casket.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was mad footy fanatic, like probably one of the biggest footy fanatics you'd come across, and he was one of them guys where Dragons when they played, everybody was against them.
Okay.
Oh, they're cheating us. See, they just hate us. Yeah, so he was one of those fanaticals.
So was he a Queenslander or was he from New South Wales? Like
No,
bigger?
Queenslander, Queenslander.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So his era of watching footy was when St. George went 11 in a row.
Yeah, 60s. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was that was him when he was a young kid. So he watched it all through that. So that's sort of
Really?
why I think that's why he became a Dragons man.
Okay, well that makes
Yeah.
sense. So in more recent years, like say through the 90s, there was some pretty
Hmm.
great Dragons players. Your Ricky Walford. He
Yeah.
must have been a bit of a fan of Walford, surely.
Yeah. I look. He loved anyone that put on the red V. He
Yeah.
just yeah. He was a very very loyal and loving St. George Dragons fan. That's why when Hook Anthony Griffin he was coaching him when my dad passed.
Yeah.
And that's why I sent Hook a couple of photos of the funeral because Hook knew my dad because Hook
Right.
was in Rocky and coached in Rocky for a while, so my
Okay.
dad knew Hook and all that. So yeah, so I sent him a few things of Dad's funeral just so he could sort of see it and stay up with it and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I've had a few
Mm.
Dragons on the show so far. We've had Noel Goldthorpe, we've had Andrew
Yeah.
Walker when he was back in those days, and
Yeah.
I've got Mark Coyne coming up, so I'm pretty excited about
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, that'll be a
Yeah.
good.
Well,
Yeah,
I was lucky enough to play with Goldie and against Goldie.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That's some good times.
yeah, Goldie come to the Dragons, but I actually played against him. I think it was my debut in '97 against the Hunter Mariners.
That's correct. I'm going to ask you about that later.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
All right. So being a young fella, you were quite small.
yeah.
Did you always play in the forwards, like being a hooker, or were you more of a 5'8", halfback, fullback, bit of a
Yeah.
utility? Like, what was your position?
My favorite position was 13, lock. I loved lock. That was my favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
And I played uh, a, a little bit of lock and center when I was like really small, in grade
Yeah.
3, 4 sort of thing. And then I stayed at lock, and I went through to all primary school through lock. But then when
Yeah.
I got to high school, because everyone else had growth spurts and everything, and I never, I ended up playing number 6. So I was 5'8" then.
Okay.
So yeah, so I did 5'8" all through high school,
Yeah.
and then I actually signed up as a 5'8" for the Cowboys.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
actually signed as a half, right? So it
yeah.
wasn't as a hooker at all.
No, the reason they put me at hooker, um, so when I debuted in '97, we because I played reserve grade. I got there in '96, and I was on the bench for under 19s, and then
Right.
I made a quick progression into starting halfback 5'8" for reserve grade, because back
Okay.
then we had the reserve grade, we had A
Yes.
grade, reserve grade, and all that through 1917s. So then
Right.
I did that, and then the following year, '97, when Super League came, I was 5'8" and half.
Okay.
But what happened was I really loved tackling. See, I love defense.
Right.
And it didn't matter. So when I made my debut, I think I was only like 78 kilos. Um, I would have
Far
been,
out.
yeah, I would have been, I was 68 kilos. And Murray Hurst, one of my old coaches, always jokes about it. He says I was 68 kilos wringing wet when I
Yeah,
first
that's
turned
what it
up.
was.
Yeah, when I turned up to the Cowboys. But then I probably would have been about 78 kilos when I debuted.
Okay.
Um, but we played a game against Penrith down at Penrith, and Mark Geyer of all people ran at me, and I picked him up and dumped him. But what
Like
happened
that.
was, yeah, but what happened was is MG tried to pass. So as I picked him up and I was going to put him down, he sort of leant over me, and so I
Right.
went a little bit wrong, and he landed on his head.
Yeah.
So I ended up, it was a spear tackle, but I didn't mean it. But
Yeah.
I got suspended for 6 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah, so
good times.
yeah, so that's kind of what led at the time Tim Sheens to trial me at hooker. So
Okay.
we went, yeah, because we used to go over to Papua New Guinea at the end of the
Yeah.
year, and we used to play against the Hiri Chiefs in the Hiri Mawali Festival.
Okay.
So the second time I went over there, he played me at hooker to see how I'd go, and
Right.
I said I didn't care. I wanted to play it as long as I was in the team. I didn't care. I just wanted to be in the first grade team, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So that's kind of how I ended up turning into a hooker.
Unbelievable. So you're all
Yeah,
about the physicality and the contact right from a young
yeah,
age coming through.
yeah. I just loved it.
Yeah.
I even remember, and I say it to my kids because my two little boys play, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they
Right.
play, and they love it. I got a 15-year-old too that he might play it on the computer, but he doesn't play it on the field.
No,
But
not for him.
nah, and that's my fault. I never really did any of that with him because I was sort of, when I first retired, I was kind of a bit sour with football.
Right.
So I was like, my son's not going to go through what I went through, the
Right.
injuries and the mistreatment and all these things. So I said, no way in the world my kid's playing footy. So I never did
Okay.
nothing with my first kid.
Right.
And even though all friends and family and my in-laws and that used to tell him, your dad played footy, your dad played for Queensland. And he was like, oh yeah, because I never used to watch footy at all.
Really? Okay.
The only footy I ever watched was the Origin.
Right.
Yeah, so every now and then when we watched it, and if we had a big gathering, they'd say to him, "Oh, your dad played this," and he'd
Yeah.
look at me, and I'd just be like, you know. And
Brush it
then,
off.
yeah, and then my two little boys, they grew up. My wife did a big poster for me and everything,
Yeah.
with all photos of me playing footy and stuff like that. And then another Cowboys fan actually did one as well, like a
Wicked.
memorabilia follow, and he sent it to me. So we had them hanging up in the house. So my two little boys, they grew up knowing that I played football.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and it was just, and I honestly never pushed it. I never, nothing at all with footy. They came to me one day with their cousins, boys and girls. They all came to me one day, about 11 of them. And they
Yeah.
said, Dad, Uncle, we want to play football. I was like,
Okay.
oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, righto, okay. But they were adamant they wanted to play, so I I did a few things with them in the gym. Then I said, right, yeah, no worries. Well, we'll do some practice. I said, if you're gonna play a physical contact game, well, you got to get used to the physicality of it. So I made them all run at me in the gym, and I just had the hit pad, and
Yeah.
I just made them run at me as hard as they could, and I'd whack them and shift them over, and
Them.
yeah. I said, well, you got to get used to it. I said, because this, if you can get used to me hitting you, then the kids your age will be nothing. That was my thought processes. So
Yeah.
yeah, but then they all joined in and played, and it wasn't until I think the halfway through the year I just said to all the mothers that because I tried to be quiet and not coach or overcoach or get in their ear or whatever, but I said you're going to have to he's going to have to come and do a session in the backyard, but no mums allowed, just me. And
Okay.
they're like, oh, okay. So I got the old hip pad out again, and I said, run at me. And this is girls as well, because this is how me and my cousins grew up, like learning
Yeah.
how to, the physicality of it like this. And I had a cousin, same age as me, and she was like my sister. So we grew up the same way, playing footy in the backyard and getting smashed by, our uncles and my father. So I did the same with the kids. I said, line them all up, 11 of them, and said, run at me. And same thing. I said, if you put the handbrake on, I said, I'm going to knock you over on your butt. But I said, if you don't put the handbrake on, I'll just stand here and let you hit me. So,
Okay.
so the first few that put the handbrake on, I just sent them flying. And they were looking at me like, I said, I told you, if you put the handbrake on, you're going to go flying. And
Yeah.
then a few of them ran. And when they realized I was serious, that I wasn't going to hit them or knock them over if they ran at me as hard as they could, then they started coming real hard and getting
Okay.
used to the contact then. And then I said, righto, now we're going to do it where you're going to come in and make a tackle. And I showed them how to tackle. I said, same thing. If you put the handbrake on, I'm going to send you flying. So I took a few and that, but then they got the hang of it, and then they weren't so frightened of the contact when they played then.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was sort of a bit of old school training with them, but
Yeah,
seemed to
man.
do the job.
Mate, I
Mm.
was such a pussy playing when I was at school. I was such a wimp. I
Well,
just
you know
never got
what?
used to that contact,
It's
eh?
funny you said that, because that's the first thing I said to them. I said, righto, kids, this is one rule, all right? This is the only rule I got. And I said, what does footy have no time for? And they were looking at me, and I said, pussies.
Yeah.
And they were like, I said, no time for pussies. I said, so don't be a pussy. Don't put the handbrake on, or I'm going to send you flying. And so,
Yeah.
sure enough, they got their heads around. Even the girls were running in and enjoying it then, because when they realised I wasn't going to knock them over if they ran as
Yeah.
hard as they could, then it
Yeah,
wasn't too
man.
bad for them. Yeah. So,
Mate, I could score a try at school because I was too frightened to get tackled. Mate, they could have put
yeah.
hits on me. I was gone.
And spiders on you.
That's the one. Yeah, out of absolute fear and terror. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I was hopeless. But anyway. So was being a professional footy player something you dreamed of doing, or did it just sort of, something you enjoyed doing and it turned into a career? Like, how did, what was the thoughts
Yeah.
as a young fella coming through?
Oh, and I always wanted to do it. Always.
Okay.
Like I said, ever since I was little, my dad I had a football in my hands the moment I could hold one. So I always wanted to be a footballer. Like there was no doubts about it. Like I said, I did a lot of boxing throughout my childhood as well, but football was always the number one thing I wanted to do. I loved it, and I had all my favourite players. So my biggest favourites were Mal Meninga,
Yeah.
just for the size, the running, and all that sort of stuff. But Trevor Gilmister for the defence.
Yeah, man.
So I used to actually call myself the Axe with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all had our names and everything. Yeah, so
Right, right.
I was the Axe. Yeah, so I just
Nice.
so I loved it, bro. Ever since I was a kid, like, and to a point where even if I watched footy by myself, I'd go out in the backyard and start practicing chip kicks and grubbers, and I'd pass it to myself and chip it to myself and kick it to, like, I was just doing stuff all the time. And even to when I played Origin, they did a video, and my dad sort of dobbed me in about how I used to wreck the mango tree. So we had
Right,
this massive big mango tree in the backyard, and I used to practice my kicking and goal
right.
kicking, drop kicking, and everything, and I'd aim for this part of the tree, and you could tell where I'd aim because there was no leaves or branches. It was like a big hole in this massive mango tree where nothing grew. So, and he used to come
Oh,
out all the time and get up and stop wrecking my freaking tree, and you carry on. But so then once I got good at kicking, then I'd practice from the driveway, I'd practice doing bombs and torpees, and then when I got really good, then it was drop kicks and stuff like that, and then out of the shoe, converting it over just to try and get it high and far and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there was never a moment when I wasn't had a football in my hands and trying to do something with football. Even my mates, we used to, not that I encourage it, but we used to pass the ball across the road
Yeah.
between the cars and stuff. Like to get a real good hard direct pass and kick it over. Like anything we could do to sharpen our skills, we did it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Get a few horn blasts from the cars. Oh, you
yeah,
bloody
yeah.
kids.
And I used to and I tell this story too. And I told it to when I was at the Roosters. So I did a year playing at the Roosters, and then I coached there. And I told all them young fellas there when I was coaching them, I said, do you carry a football, or do you do anything at home or whatever, And they're like, no. I said, well, boys, you need to. I said, I literally would walk down the hallway and practice my palm off the hallway, change the ball, palm the other side, do that, hit and spin into the, and offload into the bedrooms and stuff like that, or go over the couch and get an offload through the tackle. Like I used to practice those things like religiously every day in my house. And it wasn't so much practice, it's just what I did. I loved it. I just really loved doing it, football. So I tried to get that into their heads. Like if you really love it and you want to really sharpen your tools, you need to be practicing it all day, like every day, every chance you get. Like I'd even hold a ball. Again, I wouldn't encourage it, but when I was at the Cowboys, I used to I had a football and I'd bounce it on the dash while I was driving. Just like, because I just had to have a ball and I had to be, playing with it, passing it, or doing something with it.
Right.
So I just always had a ball in my hands.
It begs the question, what were you like in a classroom as a child? Did you sit still at all?
Oh, not really.
No, I can
Actually,
imagine.
it was funny. I was one of those kids where I used to run away from school.
Okay.
So, yeah, I didn't want, when mum and dad dropped me off, I'd be crying, I'd take off, So in grade 3, probably the first 3 months of grade 3, I mum and dad dropped me off, and some days I'd beat them home. So and they had to take me all the way back to the classroom and watch me and make sure I didn't run out the room and everything. And then the one thing that stopped me from running away was footy season started.
Right.
But yeah, so I honestly, the coach, who was like a teacher, he's like, listen, we're going to play footy. If you want to play footy, you got to stay at school. Can't keep running away. So I did. I said, right, then. So I stayed at school. So that's what kept me at school.
Mate, if I hadn't tried that, my parents would have flogged me.
Oh, don't worry, I got flogged. I just didn't learn straight away. Yeah.
Lucky footy worked out for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, crack up, man. So you said you got signed up by the Cowboys in '96. You made your debut in '97 when Super League was the new competition, like sports turning professional. What was it like as a rookie, sort of coming into this whole Super League war that erupted?
It wasn't that bad for me. Obviously because I was just starting out, so there was no I never had like 1,000 places to choose from. So it was just like, I'm already at the Cowboys signed and we're going Super League. So, and it was really good, I feel, for the fact that we had 17s, 19s, reserve grade and first grade. Yeah. So it was a really good transition to go from, like, for the young guys and that to come through. And even if you were 19 like me and you could still go back and play under 19s, well, it was, you could still do that.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I didn't mind at all, and we actually got to go over to England for 3 weeks as well. So that was amazing,
At the World Club Challenge.
No, yeah, well, we did. So we did where 3 weeks of the year. They came over for 3 rounds of footy, and they played all our teams, and then we went over there for 3 weeks, and then we played all their teams. Yeah. So we played Leeds, Salford, and Oldham.
So cool.
Yeah. So that was
amazing.
Did
more of that. Oh,
yeah,
mate, we need to shorten the NRL and have some more of that sort of into competition rivalry. It'd be great.
And the experience was unreal. Like when we went and played Leeds, and Leeds was a gun team back then, we because we were a bottom tier team, they were supposed to run through us, right? So there was only about 4,000 people there. We ended up flogging them 40 points to 4 or something like that. But there's only like 4,000 people there. But it was so loud, and it sounded like Cowboy Stadium packed.
Yeah.
like, with 20-something thousand people, but there was literally like 4,000 people. It
Yeah, they don't
was,
muck around in the UK.
nah, it was so good. And like you said, if they did more of it, and a lot of our guys got to experience, like, jam-packed crowds, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people screaming like they do. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It would have been unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So what was it like as a rookie? So when you did show up at the club, I mean, you must have known all your players being such a footy fanatic. Like you walk
Mm.
in, there's Ian Roberts and Steve Walters and Johnny
Yeah.
Lomax and Owen Cunningham, and you've
Yeah.
got Tim Sheens running it all. Like,
Mm.
what's it like for, how did you cope with being amongst all the first graders and the training side of it? How did you cope with
Mm.
that whole scenario?
Well, when I first got to the Cowboys, like I was fit anyway. I was one of them kids that couldn't get enough of training. So I'd train 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then play 2 to 3 games a weekend. So I was always flat out into it.
Right.
But what I didn't um, bank on was how long we'd train. So when I
Okay.
first got so when I first got there with under 19s, we would literally turn up at 4 o'clock, start training by 4:30, and some nights you wouldn't get home till 8:39. Like it was,
Okay.
and that was twice a week minimum.
Right.
So that was pretty hectic. So you pretty much did everything in those time frames because a lot of them were at school or working or something. So when they had the chance, they had to make the most of it. So like
Okay.
there was a lot of times where all of our stuff was done one after another, weights and ball work and fitness and everything straight after one another. So the
Far out.
body, the legs especially was struggling for a couple of months. I felt like I'd two quad tears, two hammy tears, but they were just so sore from just getting flogged. But and again too, I had that mentality and attitude where I didn't like to get beaten at first. So my whole
Okay.
thing was like, I'm going to be in the top group, of the fitness and all those sorts of things. I didn't want to be left behind, and so I pushed myself really hard to
Yeah.
where, yeah, it buggered me up a little bit. But it was interesting because when I made the transition into the top squad for reserve grade, back then it was very much like this is their territory. So you step into their territory, you got to earn it.
Yeah.
So, and I always say this to the kids that I train from the ISA and that, like, I don't want to hear any, oh, they're not picking me, they don't like me, or they're not favouring me or whatever. I said, because my own teammates in my top 30 squad were literally picking me up, folding me in half, taking me, like, because every week was like a trial to get a spot,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the way we had to train. That was the mentality you had to have. So being this little skinny Murray fellow, and growing up the way I grew up with dad and my uncles and that, I loved that. Like, someone hit me, I was like, yeah, good shot. I'm going to hit you back. So this little skinny fellow was, picking up some of these big blokes and named blokes and fold them in half to a point where I got, I suppose, a reputation within the club of, I don't do any tackling with Doyle because it hurts
Yeah.
too much. So, and that was wholly solely because of my competitiveness, at the time. Like I didn't want to give an inch to anyone,
Yeah.
and that was my dad. My dad really pushed that into me. He said, don't, he said, you make sure you go above and beyond and you go out, then you make them see you. So that's what I took with me to the Cowboys. And the only thing is I wish I had that mentality all the way through. I sort of got a bit injuries and stuff like that. You get a bit disheartened and a bit down, and then you get a little bit mistreated, and you, because you love it so much, you don't realize it's actually a business. That
Yes.
was that was the one thing I could never get my head around, or my heart around, that it's a business. To me, it was just something I loved. It was the only thing I didn't love more than my family. Like, I mean, my family was the only thing I loved more than footy. Like, it was just
Right.
family then footy. That's all it was, family and footy. So the whole professionalism of it and business side of it, I just didn't get it. So,
Right.
and that led to, I suppose, a few bad attitudes on my behalf.
Okay. No, no,
Yeah,
fair enough. I suppose when you just grow up loving the game, you just
yeah,
want to play. You just want to play. And
that's
then
it.
when you
Yeah,
sign a contract, you sign
yeah.
your life away, essentially.
Well, it is, and a lot of people think, oh, you must be a millionaire, you must have money, all these sorts of things. And I said to him, I said, well, when I first signed a contract, I said, because I played for the first year in '96. I just worked at the club for $180 a week.
Oh
That's
my
all I got,
God.
and
Oh
my
my
rent
God.
was my rent was 130. So, so I had
So
50
you're
bucks
living on
left over.
instant noodles, you know.
Well, you know, I was living on, bro. I was living on Weet-Bix and
Yep.
bread and bananas.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's not so bad. I like all those
no,
things.
and packet pasta too when I could.
Oh,
But
mate.
yeah, so,
Oh,
and
that's
that's what I
rough.
mean. Like my first contract I signed was $5,000 sign on.
Okay.
So I was playing in '97 for the Cowboys in first grade on $5,000 a year.
And that's Super League too. So that's when all the
Yeah,
money came
yeah.
in. Oh,
The
God.
the best thing about that was like we did have a lot of contracts were incentivized back then. So we
Okay.
had incentives like if you play first grade, you'll get $1,500 a game,
Okay.
and that sort of thing, and it may go up after every five type thing. So
Right.
that was, I suppose, a way and a means to keep you enthusiastic and working hard to not settle to go, well, I've signed for 60,000, I don't have to do nothing now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, but yeah, my third year of first grade, I was only on 60,000 a year.
Okay.
So yeah, so for my whole career, it worked out. I think it was about $40,000 a year on average for my whole
Okay.
career. So that's what I try to
Okay.
tell people. It's one of them things where you want the top dollar. Well, you gotta train for it. You gotta work for it. You gotta have a top dollar attitude. You can't just think, oh well, I'm here now. I've made it.
Yeah.
Because so many blokes would come there and think they'd made it, and would never get a start, or they were trying to work out why aren't they in first grade, and then they get disheartened and then just sort of disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's full on. But at least I guess you had an opportunity to get paid to do what
Mm.
you love for a period of
Yeah.
your life, which is not everyone gets to say they can do that.
Nah.
Most people like me get up at 4 in the morning, go work a 12-hour shift, or do it at
Yeah.
night time.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and you never realize, like I never realized how, because when I first retired, I retired because of injuries and obviously because I wasn't happy. And I was like, oh, I don't need 40. That's it. I'm done. But then when I retired, I was like, now what am I going to do?
yeah,
You know what I mean? It was like, that's what I was really good at. And that sort of came easy, in the sense of playing the game and stuff like that. Now it's like, I got to go and learn a whole new skill,
yeah,
because we never really did it. We didn't have time for work or anything, which is what I think is great about the last 10 years or so where they're doing that learning or earning stuff. So
yeah,
we never had time to get another skill or a trade or something. So it was like, now what am I going to do?
yeah.
So, but I suppose because my dad was a police liaison officer for 28 years before he
Okay.
died, he was the first one, him and a couple of others were like the originals from Rockhampton
Right.
for that area. Yeah, so we'd always go around and help, and they literally had a policeman's job, but just with the heavy flashlight, they didn't have the guns and all that. So yeah, so I'd go with them for drives sometimes when I come home for holidays from Cowboys, and I just sort of naturally went into helping. So when I
Okay.
when I when I did go back to Rocky after I retired, I was working in schools. I was working with like youth programs and helping kids that were disadvantaged or disengaged or at risk youth and stuff like that. So that sort of became my niche, and I just
Okay.
sort of picked that up and I ran with that for a bit, and then it's funny because I retired for a whole year. Then I came back out because the Capras kept humbugging me to play.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, okay, I'll finally give in. Excuse me. And then I played 3 games for them, but I fractured my neck in the second game.
Oh God.
So I actually played a game with a fractured neck.
No, really.
But yeah, because I'd missed a week, and I said to him, I can't feel my right arm and all these sorts of things, and then so I played a game. Being a hardhead, I was just miss one
Yeah.
week and play. And I remember saying to him distinctly when it happened, I heard a big crack and all that, and they were getting the medicab, and I was like, "Don't bring that out. That's embarrassing. A shame." I
Right.
said, "I'll be playing next week," and I said, "And they're going to," because we used to say it too. Oh, he got medicabbed off and he's back, and we used to, so that old mentality. But um, I missed a week and I came back and played, and I said my arm and my neck's still no good, so I got an X-ray and they said, yeah, it's fractured. So I had to wear a brace for like 3 months, which I never did. I only wore it when I was at home. We went to Melbourne on a holiday with my mates, and we went skiing and everything. And they're like, shouldn't you have your brace on? I said, it's all right, don't worry about it.
Should be right.
Yeah, it's only a fracture. It's not even a real break. So, but then I had another year off after that, and then I went back to. It was funny because Big Artie Beeston, he went to town to Rocky, and he said, seen my father, and he's like, oh, Doyle, where's your son? To my dad, and he's like, oh, he's in Mount Isa. He's like, what's he doing? And he said, oh, he's playing soccer, because I was working in the mines and just playing soccer locally.
Yeah.
So he's like, does he want to play again? Because we'd love to have him. And my dad was a mad, like I said, footy fanatic, and was so pumped and over the moon about me being an NRL footballer that he always wanted me to keep going back. He never wanted me to quit. So he said to Artie, without even talking to me, he's chomping at the bit to get back. He can't wait. And I had no intentions whatsoever. Yeah, no. So, he was all pumped. And anyway, he rings me. He's like, son, Artie Beeston's going to call you. I was like, what for? He's like, because he wants you to play for the Roosters. I was like, Dad. He goes, oh, just entertain it, son, please. Just see what happens, I said, oh, righto. So Artie rang me, and because I honestly thought, I'd been out of the game for 3 years. No one's going to want an old busted, broken down footballer to come back and play. And Artie's like, oh, are you keen to play, your dad said. And I was like, yeah, Artie, yep. He's like, all right. Well, I'll talk to Sticky, Ricky Stewart, and I know he'd be keen to have you back, and we'll see what happens. I said, yeah, rightio. Next thing you know, Ricky Stewart rings me up, and he's like, so I heard you're keen to come back. And I was like, oh, yeah, for sure, Ricky. Yeah, definitely. So I went down and did a medical and stuff like that, because he was just worried about my body and my injuries. So I went down and did a medical, and I actually didn't pass it, but the physio, but the physio lady's like, do you want to play? I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, it doesn't really matter what we say. If you want to play and Ricky wants you, then he'll sign you. He said, and she's like, we'll just manage it. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'm keen. I sort of got the bug a bit again then, sort of just being around it. I was like, well, I'm keen as. So then anyway, I did a training session with them, like a pose session. And it was funny because, big Dave Shillington and that were, they were young and up and coming, and they were there to prove a point too, So it was a little bit physical, the opposed, and I don't think they liked me because I was always a physical player. So, I didn't mind to whack them or get whacked or whatever. So, but Ricky enjoyed that, because he said it's good to see you still had that bit of pace and that bit of mongrel about you. So if you're keen, then we're keen. I was like, yeah, I'm in, Ricky, I'm in, So, so it was funny. And then it was funny because Wayne Bennett rang me up and asked me if I was coming back. I said, yeah, I am. And I said, he's like, oh, well, what, you talking to Roosters, eh? I said, yeah, I'm talking to the Roosters. I said, Ricky's actually pretty keen, and they've actually sent me an offer. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll get our guys to give you a call to see what happens. And they took a bit too long, and then Ricky Stewart got wind of it, and he's like, mate, I heard you're talking to the Broncos now. He said, you want to play or not? I said, yeah, I do. He goes, well, I got your offer. And so in my mind, I was like, well, he's the one that showed interest first. And he was the one that, like when I got down there, he sort of pulled out the welcome carpet for me. So I thought, yeah, no, I'm definitely, and as much as I love Wayne and we still get on and talk now, I was like, no, Ricky, I'm going to go here for Ricky, because he showed faith in me and all that. So I went there and we changed our training. I didn't run. I'd only run like ball sessions before the game. Teamwork and stuff. I didn't really do a lot of the running on the field. I got flogged every day in the gym on all the cardio equipment. So, but look, it got me back on the field, and I ended up playing 10 games for the Roosters, first grade. And I actually I finished the year as the number one hooker, and we had Craig Wing in the team and everything.
Wow.
So I'd finished as the number one hooker, and I re-signed. But training pre-season for 2007, I hurt my knees doing plyometrics.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was probably at, like, without a word of a lie, I was probably at the fittest and the strongest I'd ever been in my whole career. Because
Okay.
I was super keen and I got the bug and I was like, I'm ready for this again, and they were managing my training. And so it was really good.
Yep.
And a mistake of my own, I got too confident and thought I'll go out here and do the plyometrics. And I
Yeah.
landed awkwardly and that just aggravated both my knees. And
Oh,
I couldn't run at all for like 3 weeks, nearly 4 weeks. And Chris Anderson was there and he's like, mate, we're going to have to reassess and we want you on the field obviously, but we're gonna have to reassess and see where your knees are at. So I went and got them x-rayed again and spoke to physios and doctors and stuff, and they basically told me then that I had 80-year-old man knees.
oh my
So,
God.
yeah, so I mean that wasn't good to hear. And then they said, look, if you're on big money, then play the year out and then retire. But if you're not, then you need to retire. So, and a doctor said to me, I said, oh, this will be my last year. And she's like, you shouldn't even be playing.
Okay.
She said, do you want to have kids? And I said, yeah, of course I do. I want to have kids, run around, play with them. She said, well, if you want to have kids and be active in their lives and run around and play with them, you need to stop right now. So,
Okay.
and that's
Game
what,
over.
yeah, so that really hit home because I was going to try and persevere. And then when she broke it down in terms of age, and so she's like, "You're 29 now." She said, "If you play another year, you'll have your first knee replacements at the age of 40, and then that'll last till you're 55, and then you'll have another one, and that'll last to 70." She said, "And you can only get two in your lifetime, and that's it. So what are you going to do when you're 70? And you've
No,
exhausted all your knee replacements?" I'm like, "Oh." Well, I don't know. And I was like, yeah. And that sort of hit home then. And that was where,
I bet.
yeah. So that's where I took a bit of time, just me and my missus, and we were just sort of contemplating it and thinking about it and what to do. And then Chris Anderson said to me, look, we understand that these are the decisions that you have to make, but we don't want to lose your experience and your knowledge and that sort of stuff and your expertise. So you've already used up a quarter of your contract. So
Okay.
25% of your contract is all they have to pay you back then when you're retired.
Right.
He said, but we'd like to keep paying you as per normal and you be on the coaching staff.
Sweet.
So I was like, perfect. So I ended up
Yeah.
being I was like a skills coach for the first grade and an assistant coach for reserve grade and under 20s.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, so I loved it. And like, honestly, and then that's when I thought I'm going to head into this. And then, as clubs do, Chris Anderson left, Freddie got put on, and then like Freddie's got friends already coaching, and they're always looking for new dynamics and stuff. So all the new guys come on. They said that I could stay there on a casual basis.
Yeah.
I said, look, I can't afford to stay casually. I never made money in the first place, so so
Yeah.
I ended up coming back to Mount Isa and working in the mines again. So
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
But like I said, coaching, like my dad was always humbugging me to be involved, and it was to play,
Yeah.
play, play. And then when I couldn't play anymore, he's like, "Well, you better coach. I want you to
Yeah.
coach, coach, coach." So, but I sort of stayed away from it for a long time because I was a little bit dirty and sour for the fact that it's not so much. It was more the fact that I loved it so much, and it was like I felt like it was taken away from me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what really hurt. And then even when I played Origin, man, I tell the kids that I train now, and I use it as an example. I said, I let things get to me and to a point where I'd explode rather than sort it out. I said,
Okay.
so I'd like I was probably at my worst mentally, emotionally, and physically, and I played State of Origin.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I said to them, I said, and I never ever thought about it or give myself enough credit for it, but I said to them, imagine what I could have achieved if I didn't have a bad attitude and I wasn't mentally and emotionally drained, or you know what I mean? Like if I hadn't let things get to me to a point where it broke me. If I had
Yeah.
because when I was playing Origin, I couldn't put my own shoes and socks on. So
Really.
because of my back, so I had to get
Really.
so I had to get my boots and socks put on and taken off.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
go
how.
out there and cut
Yeah,
guys in half for 80 minutes.
yeah,
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy.
I suppose it's like that adrenaline too, and that
Yeah.
being at hyper because you love it so much. Like I never ever stopped loving being on the field. Like
Okay.
being on the field was like the mask and the cover for all the rubbish or whatever
Yep.
that happened during the week and whatever. So just getting on that field was what I loved the most. And the fact that I was so injured throughout my whole career, which made it very hard for me to get on the field. So basically, I think I averaged like 9 games a year because of
Yeah.
injury. Yeah,
Yes, I ran through your stats, and I
yeah,
noticed the couple seasons before you made your Origin debut, you
yeah,
played next to nothing, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden, 2001, you pop up as an Origin player.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, and it's interesting to learn that you,
Mm,
you you weren't in a great headspace at all. Yet you've
yeah,
gone and made the pinnacle for any
yeah,
Queenslander,
yeah.
and you won a series. You scored a try on debut.
I
Like,
know.
what's that
I,
like? In that
oh,
moment, like, it must be amazing.
yeah, it was. It was like honestly, it was, and there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. My grandmother had passed away, and she was in 2000. I'd only played 3 games. That's when I first hurt my shoulder.
Yeah.
So I hurt it in the second game against the Dragons. Um, so I hurt my shoulder. I was out for 6 weeks. They kept training me, and then they brought me back to play for. I think I played 2 games, and then the second game back, it just went again, and it was no. It was already buggered, no good. So they booked me in for a reconstruction. So then they did that. I was in the emerging Origin squad. So you know how they do the emerging Origin squads.
Yes.
So I was in the original one that they started with. Likes of Webby, Takiri,
Oh wow.
Buttigigs, and those sorts of
Yeah.
players. We were in that emerging squad together. Chris Walker and
Yep.
that. So we were all in that together. And then leading into 2001, then that's I recovered from everything, and then I come back and started playing. And I was actually I was on the last year of my contract.
Okay.
So yeah, so it made it hard because then they ended up extending me for one more year. And then I let it get to me. I had a terrible attitude. Like Billy Johnson always, I get on with Billy really well still, and I
Yep.
remember Billy said to my dad one time when we went down and watched Matty Bowen because he's my brother-in-law. So
Okay.
we went and watched an Origin game, and he was he was talking to us afterwards, Billy, and he said to my dad, "Oh, I said your son." He said one of the most naturally talented and gifted players I ever come across. He said, but geez, he got a bad attitude. But he was right. But we were laughing and that, and he was right. I had a terrible attitude because, again, and that's what I try to teach my athletes that I train and I coach. Like, don't look for an excuse or a way out. Don't look for, and I always say it to my clients. I own a gym in Mount Isa, and I always say it to them. And I said it to my wife the other day. Actually, I said we always look. There's 1,001 reasons not to train.
Hmm.
So we look for every single one of those excuses, but we can't even find one to train. You
Right.
know what I mean? I said, and there's way more reasons to train,
Yeah,
like
man.
genuine reasons to train. So, and I say that to my athletes, like, don't look for a way out. Like I looked for a way out and I found it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and even though I didn't want it subconsciously, I obviously was looking for a way out because I wasn't happy. So instead
Yeah.
of dealing with that, I just found that easy way out.
Okay.
And I wish, and like when I first retired, brother, I had offers from Canberra, Manly, Melbourne, South, and Panthers, but
Far out.
I just said no, straight up, no, I don't want. And Canberra's my favourite team in the whole world. I'm a Canberra's boy since I was little, since Meninga went there,
Right. Yep.
So
Yep.
I had the opportunity to go play for my favourite club, but I said no.
Wow. So
Yeah,
was that
so
just the injuries, or was it a
it's a
combination of
bit,
injuries, contracts,
yeah,
things like that?
yeah, it was everything. It was contracts, it was injuries, it was like I suppose too. It was, and that's why when I see all these the young fellas whinging about injuries or things, mistreatment and stuff, I'm like, you guys have got no idea. Like,
No
you've got
idea.
it so good now. Like, I wish I was playing in this era. Like, back then it was like, you want to play this weekend? Like, yeah. Well, then you get on the training paddock and you're like, well, the doctor said I can't train if I want to play. Well, I'm telling you, if you want to play, you got to train. So
Yep.
you were conflicted, and so it was like, well, and me, I loved it so much that I just wanted to be out there, and I was so proud that my parents could watch me on TV, and my
Yeah.
little sisters and stuff, and my little brother, and I was so proud that they could watch me and little cousins at home and that. So I did what they wanted me to do, and I just got on the field, and instead of missing that training and then playing on the weekend, I'd train, play that weekend, and I'll be out for 4 weeks.
Right.
You know, so and then obviously players talk and doctors talk, and you're like, well, this is what they're telling me to do, you know, and and the coach or trainers will say, well, you're contracted to work for us. This is what we want you to do. This is what you got to do. So instead of learning ways to deal with it, or you know, maybe going to leadership group and stuff like that, I just did what they wanted and made out. And I was probably my worst enemy, because I'd say, no, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. No, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll train, you know, and like my knees were shot to bits, my back was shot to bits, and my neck and my shoulders. And so, but I just kept training and playing when I could, until a point to where I couldn't, you know. So
Yeah.
like I played games with broken hand, and I played a game with, like I said, a fractured neck, and you know, where I need to have knee surgeries, but I never had them done. I just would play and miss, you know, 4 weeks, and then come back, and then miss another
Yeah.
week or two and come back. And so, and it sort of really ruined my progress to going on to being a bigger and better player, you know. So, but
Okay.
that's, and I wear that as much as anyone. Like that's what I teach the kids, is we're in control of our own destinies and our own fate. So, you know, I made those decisions to play and to train when I probably shouldn't have. So,
Yeah.
you know
It's a
what I mean?
patience thing, eh? I have
It
that problem
is.
because I'm a long distance runner. Me and my wife, we run heaps, man. But
Yeah.
like I get injuries all the time just
Yeah.
because I want to do more than what I physically can. And
Yeah.
instead of having that rest day, you push out another fast run
Yeah.
or something, and then there goes a tendon in my foot. Great,
Yeah.
there's 6 weeks now. Like,
I know, but it's that mentality of, oh, you'll be right. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'll be right mentality. And that's
yeah,
what the biggest thing that made me quit after the Roosters was, we didn't have our normal club doctor. So a
yeah.
lady was stepping in between until he came back. And she was mortified that I was even running and playing. Like she's like, I can't believe you're even running, let alone walking. She said, I don't
Wow.
know how you're doing it, but it's kind of like that that mentality of like, oh, I'll be right, you know. And it's a men's thing too that we go through.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
you know what I mean? So and that was the whole thing. And same thing with the whole, like I said, about the mental and emotional health. I was still in my head saying, no, I'll be right, I'm fine, you know,
yeah,
and didn't realize that all them things that were really playing on my heart and my head, were really getting to me mentally and emotionally. And then because my body was failing physically, I just turned into I suppose, a really negative kid with a bad attitude. And
okay,
everyone that knows me well enough knows that that's not me at all. You know, like I'm
yeah,
always doing what I can to help people and stuff like that. And I couldn't even help myself. And that was where
right,
I was like, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't even help myself. And you know, so you have all them doubts and stuff like that, and then you're like, oh yeah, I should retire, I should quit. You know,
yeah,
all those silly things like that. So I'm glad the game is heading in a direction where they're trying to help a lot more people deal with those issues, you know, and there's a lot
yeah.
more awareness of it now and stuff like that. So I'm really glad that the game's going in that direction.
Okay. Well, I
Mm.
guess because we're in an era where we know more about mental health,
Mm.
but to be an athlete at your level,
Mm.
you have to be such a high achiever and also mentally strong. So
Yeah.
your mental strength for threshold of
Mm.
pain must be
Yes.
through the roof, and it's
Yeah.
actually your own worst enemy because
Pretty
it actually
much.
hampered you at the end. Even
Yeah.
though I would kill to have a pain threshold and the mental strength you have. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to at the end of a marathon. Those last 5K are brutal, but
Yeah.
that's a different kettle of fish to thrashing your body on the field every week, like getting absolutely whacked.
Yeah. And the thing is too is once you do that, then you've got to back it up for the week at training,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And it
you get
was
one day
and it
off
was
and away you go again.
yeah. And even our recovery sessions, like they weren't just a couple of laps in the pool. Like you had to, you know, it was like a 30 to 40 minute flogging session was your
Oh
recovery
wow,
in the pool or something, you know. And we used to do a thing where, and I always talk to my athletes about it and say to them, we used to do a thing, if you didn't play, if you played less than half a game the next day at recovery, you'd have to do your recovery, but then you'd have to do 2,100 meter sprints.
wow,
Yeah,
sprints.
so
Oh nice.
if you didn't play more than half a game, you had to do 2,100 meter sprints.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, so and it's funny, I did this because I do some mentoring and stuff at the schools in Mount Isa, and I was doing like a young boys group, and so we do fitness, then we'll have a bit of a chat, and then we'll
Yep.
play games. So I actually did that with them one day. I said 2100s we're doing on the minute. And they're
Wow.
like, what? And I said, yeah, you don't just have to make it there before the minute's up. I said, if you get there in 20 seconds or you get 40 seconds rest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And after 5, kids were bailing up and and it was funny. And
I'm
I'm
gonna
like,
give
come
that a go.
on. Yeah, and I'm yelling at them, come on. And the ones that are doing really good, I'm telling them, talk to your mates, bring them with you, So they started getting them, taking their mates with them too. So we did 5 and had a rest. And then we
Okay.
did 10 straight. And I said to
Wicked.
them, after we did 10 straight, I said, if you do one more, that'll be 16 all up. I said, but if everybody makes the time limit, that'll be it. So everybody ran, and these are kids grade 7 to 9. So what's that, 12, 13 to 15, And so they were like kids that were really unfit, kids that were overweight, kids that were underweight. Like they were dragging them, they were helping each other. And it was so good to see by the end of it that
Yeah.
that last 100 that they had the mental gumption and fortitude and everything and emotional to actually get there and drag their mates with them. And then I
Yep.
sat them down and said, now, how do you feel? And they were tired, but they were pumped that they got it
Yep.
done. And I said, now you've just got a sense of reward. I said, you've just completed something so tough. You all got through it and you helped each other through it. So,
Yep.
so we sat down and had a little bit of a chat, and then we'd play touch or basketball, depending on whatever game they wanted to play. So that's what I used to do with them. That's what I do with those kids at the school, just to try to get them. Because when we fatigue them, they let their barrier down, their guard down.
Yep.
Then we can talk, and we can talk through, issues and things that they do subconsciously versus things that they do consciously, and all these different things. We can start trying to nut down to the bottom of why they misbehaving or why they got a bad attitude or whatever. And
Okay.
that's what I wish I had when I was playing.
Right.
So, and then once we do that, then the reward is, well, let's go play basketball, let's go play touch now and have a laugh.
Yep.
So, and it's really good, and it's really interesting to see them getting through them little barriers
Yeah.
and bringing each other along. And that's what I miss about footy. That's
Yeah.
what I miss, is that camaraderie. Like that's one of the biggest things I miss about footy. That's why I still coach now, like locally, and I was coaching the like the Queensland Outback men's team.
Okay.
So all the Outback teams, all the northern, the western teams would play in a carnival and stuff, and then we'd pick a Queensland team, and then we
Yep.
played against Northern United, which was far north, and Torres Strait. Played a game against them, and then the second year I did it, we played against New South Wales country, and I don't mind saying we flogged them.
As you do.
So yeah, but then and then this last year just gone, we played in a battalion comp, which is a lot of your coastal teams and just in Western a little bit,
Yep.
which are your really top tier rep teams and obviously in training systems and stuff like that. So that was a real good eye opener for the boys to see that, yes, whilst we might have won those other games comfortably, the competition was sort of equal to ours, and
Okay.
we were lucky enough that we just had, a bit of structure, a bit of discipline or whatever to overcome hurdles and to keep on the game plan to get the points on the board. Whereas when we played this comp last year, one mistake, man, and they crucify you.
Over. Yep.
Yeah,
Over.
so it was good for them to see the differences, and
Yep.
why I always tell them about picking your training up, picking your behaviours and your attitudes and your work ethic and that up. So yeah.
Great lessons. Great lessons that you're teaching them, man. It's so good to have a positive attitude, because opportunities don't always come your way, but when they do, you gotta take them and run with them, but in the right way as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's
Well,
amazing.
and I always tell them too, like when we played, when we played rep footy for Rocky and CQ and Central Queensland, and that, like it was a massive deal. So we were in our minds, and that we were like, oh, how good's this? I just got picked for the Rocky rep team. I just got picked for the Central Queensland team. So we were pumped, and we didn't want to do the wrong thing by the jersey, the town, the family, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas nowadays, I feel it's not they're not that entrenched in that loyalty for themselves, their jersey, and their towns and family.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So I'm trying to bring that back to the West, where they
That's cool.
actually, so take pride in the fact that you got picked. I said, but
Yeah,
also you're representing first and foremost your own brand, then your family, your team that you play for in the
yeah,
club, and then also
yep,
your town, So
exactly.
it's a massive deal, and it's
Yeah.
a real privilege.
Yeah, we're trying to do that here in Canterbury. Like for the
Mm.
Canterbury Bulls, we're talking New Zealand provincial level. Canterbury used to beat
Yeah,
Auckland, back in the
yeah,
90s when we
yeah,
had Kiwis in provincial level. And
yeah,
now we've got kids being signed at 13 and 14 years old for
yeah,
NRL clubs. So they
yeah,
don't really want to play for the Canterbury Bulls, which is
yeah,
our provincial side. And
yeah,
we're trying to bring back that passion
yeah,
for Canterbury, like that it's
yeah,
a worthy jersey to play for, represent your province. Like it's
yeah.
still a big deal,
And
even if you don't make an NRL club.
and they don't realise that you've actually got to have a starting point in a place that you came from when you applied your trade. Like,
Yeah,
and that's, like I always talk about my club back home, your Poon Seagulls, and my team, North Rocky High, I talk about those all the time, and what they don't realise is in rugby league, our community of rugby league is, you can play anywhere, like, even if you don't make it to the top tier. So we got a guy that plays in my team in town in Mount Isa for Townies. He played in WA. He's played in the Territory. He's played
yep,
down south. Because you meet people at carnivals and you meet people at like rep teams and stuff, and they're like, "Hey, you should come down here. We'll get you a job and you can play for our club."
wicked.
So you just get to meet so many people and
Yeah,
experience so many different places and towns if you really
yeah,
want to.
yeah. It
But you've
opens
got
all the doors. Yeah,
and you've got to start there, but you've got to actually put the time and effort into an area, and then get that opportunity to meet other people and go traveling around. Then,
yeah, man. Oh, that's
mm.
so cool. You're giving back to the game after your career. Now there's
Mm.
one thing we didn't touch on was making your debut all the way
Oh,
back in
yeah,
'97 for
mm.
against the Hunter Mariners. So
Yeah,
what was that experience like? Getting the call up, like learning you're gonna make your first grade rugby league debut after years of dreaming of
Mm.
this moment. You're finally there. How good was that?
Oh, mate, it was so good. Like I cried. Like when I see my name picked, on the board, because we go and we'd have our meetings and stuff. I think it was round 4, and we went in, and my name was on the board at 5'8", and I was just
Oh
like I
God.
was thinking, is this for real, or someone having, what's going on here, And then when they said, yep, Doyle, you're going to be playing 5'8" and stuff like that, making your debut, and everyone was cheering, I was like it was just, honestly, it was like I'd won the lottery. Like it was,
Yeah.
what I mean? It was just so special, and it was so amazing. And then the fact that I got to ring my mum and dad and say, listen, I'm making my debut this weekend and stuff like that. So it was a massive deal for home and all that sort of stuff. Even like friends and family back home were, because Rocky's not a very big place either. So you kind of know most people in the town, so, or they know of you or you know of them. So when
Right.
I got to make my debut, like it went around the town, oh, John Doyle from here, he's making his debut this weekend. And so it was pretty amazing, like it was, and special too, and I just remember, because I played reserve grade the year prior and then started the year in reserve grade, and I'd got used to the speed and the level,
Yeah.
of that, and the physicality of it too. But then when you went to first grade, it was just a whole nother level again. It was,
Another beast.
yeah, like you just remember the moment you had a chance to stop and get your thoughts, you realized how fatigued you were, gasping for air, but you didn't have time to like stop and hands on the knees or hands on hips. You didn't have time. It was like, okay, next set, next set, next set. So that was the biggest thing I remember. And I nearly scored a try and debut too, so I was pretty
Yeah.
pumped about that. Yeah. So, but no, it was so amazing. But like honestly, it's even, and I tell the story and about when I got picked for Queensland,
Yeah.
um, because I had a manager, and then I changed my manager to a new one, and he
Right.
he and he was really good. The new fellow, like he understood what I was about, and what I wanted to achieve and stuff. And he rang me up one day, and he's like, "Oh, congratulations, mate!" And I was like, "Yeah, what for?" And he's like, "Number 9." I said, "Number 9, what about it?" And he's going, "Queensland." I said, "What are you talking about?" He's going, "Queensland, mate, number 9." I said, "Yeah, what about it?" He goes, "You're in." I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And then I was like, so what do you want, bro? What are you after? And he's like, no, I'm serious. Congratulations, mate. You're number 9. I was like, don't be stupid. And I'm like, it took him a good few minutes to actually make me realize he was being serious and not pranking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, are you for real? And he's like, yeah. And then this overwhelming feeling of emotion, I just started crying. And
Yeah.
my sister had walked in and she's like, thought, because I'm on the phone crying, oh, someone's died. What's happening? So she started crying, and before she even knew what was happening, and then I got off the phone. She's like, What's going on?" And I was like, "I made it." And she's like, "Made what?" I said, "I made the Queensland team." So then we started crying more,
Oh,
and then
beautiful.
and then
Beautiful.
I had a mate of mine, Brian Jellick.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Yeah,
Kiwi boy.
BJ,
Yeah, man.
yeah. So him and his missus were over, and so we were crying in the room, me and my sister, for ages. And then every time I tried to come out, I'd cry and go back in. And they didn't know what was going on. And I came out and they were like, "You're all right, is everything okay?" And I was like, I made the Queensland team. And then we were, and it was nuts. And then the phone didn't stop ringing to a point where, like, I'd be on the phone and you could hear a call coming through, and I'd put them on hold and answer that one, and then I'd have to hang up and then another one. And I literally took the phone off the hook and went out to dinner so that I could just get away from the phone. Like, it was nuts. It was crazy. I had no idea, because never in my wildest dream did I think I'd make it. I always wanted to. And I'd never ever made a Queensland team in my life except for Origin. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
So
so one of
cool.
my,
And you come off 2 kind of crap years of injury as well. So
yeah,
to get in there is amazing.
yeah, I know. And then I found out, like, in camp, I was talking to Tallis and Sailor, and they were saying, and even Wayne, they were saying, look, you actually got picked not just because of what you do on the field and whatever and that, but you also got picked because, they spoke to the leadership group within the Queensland team, and they had a void to fill at 9. And it was kind of like, they all said, what about Doyle? We should put Doyle in there. And
Yeah,
so my peers kind of picked me in that team as well,
that's so cool.
which was even big again. I was like, oh my God, like, because I looked up to those guys, and, they were Queensland Australian players and that, and they actually picked me and wanted me in the team and stuff like. So that was pretty amazing to think about, like this little
Yeah.
skinny Aboriginal fella from Rockhampton, and these big gun players want him to be in the team with them. So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, bro. So
Mm.
speaking of Aborigine, you played for
Yes.
the Aborigine side against Papua New Guinea for 2
Yeah.
games. So
Yeah.
how amazing was that to go play the Kumals and represent your
Yeah.
family, your culture?
Oh,
Like, that must be amazing.
mate, it was so good. Like, and like, we had a gun team, like, and that was around the time where so they were trying to get like an Aboriginal team in the World Cup, and
Yep,
they were still trying, and so on. So this was going to be the like the inaugural, because it was the inaugural Australian Aboriginal Test team. So,
that's
like,
right.
and there was me, Carl Webb, John Buttigieg, Cliffy
Oh wow,
Lyons, Johnny
lovely,
Simons, Mark Tukey. So, and then we had Ricky Walford was a manager player, one of the managers in the team,
awesome.
and Artie Beeston was the coach. So it
Oh,
was,
love it.
oh mate, it
Wow.
was so good to be a part of, like, and like I said, to represent, like, my people, my culture, and that, it was like it, and it was so good being around all the boys, like even Owen Craigie was there too. That's right, yeah.
Oh, he's a legend, mate. He's a
Yeah,
legend.
so so we had so many good blokes in the team, and like I said, Cliffy Lyons, and Johnny Simons, they, by that stage, they were like legends,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and having them around, and just seeing how much it meant to them, but also how relaxed they were,
yeah.
that was really good to be a part of, and it's funny because, see, when I train in my gym now, this is a little bit off kilter, but when I train in my gym, and it all started from this. So I tore my calf in the first test against New Guinea, and I had a lot of little fiber tears. So I literally
Okay.
couldn't walk on it. I'd be on my
All
tippy
right.
toe and limping like crazy. But the
Okay.
guy that we had as our physio was like, we had a week to prepare for the next game. He's like, you no shoes for you. You barefoot everywhere we go. He said, and I'll do acupuncture and stuff on you. And I was like,
Yep.
yeah, no worries. And then the day of the next test in Cairns, we did a team run. That was the only time I ran, and I could run. And
Yeah.
so they just guarded it up, padded it up for contact.
Yep.
And I played that night, and I ended up getting like the Artie Beetson Player of the Series.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then straight away from that moment on, I said, "That's it." When I started doing my own training and that, no shoes.
No shoes.
Yeah, so and it was funny because my wife and that in the when I moved to Mount Isa and I met her and stuff like that. But when I first started doing gym stuff with people, I was doing it in my backyard, and it was my sister-in-laws, my wife and her sisters,
Right.
and it was literally no shoes in the red dirt and bindies, and tossing tires and dragging tires and chains and all this stuff, in the
Brilliant.
in the backyard barefoot with
Yeah.
no with bindies and all that in the backyard and everything. And people would have been looking at us like, look at these crazy Murray fellas, they. But like that's where I got that mentality from, like, and it works too, like because your feet can actually stick into the ground and get the body's natural contours and that, and
Right.
where your imbalances and that are. So you're not wearing a shoe that gives you a heightened inner like arch or a flatter arch or whatever. Your feet can actually grip into the ground, and a lot of them now that's why they got that naked shoe, and a lot of them are doing that stuff
Yeah.
with the So that's where I got that my training method barefoot, and I tell my clients, come in, you can train barefoot. It's up to you. I prefer you train barefoot, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. But
Yeah.
it was funny too because when I first started doing it in a biggest like in a gym, people were looking at me, and there with no shoes on, and I'm like, look, I didn't just come out of the bush. I'm not just a black fella out of the bush. All right, I said, and I had to explain why I got no shoes on, and I'm training in the gym with them. So but now like everyone knows now they know that I'm either barefoot or just with pluggers thongs on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because business isn't going so well. Can't even afford shoes.
Yeah, that's right. Well, mate, that was like to be able to play for the Australian Aboriginal team, man, and to have the likes of Ricky Walford and Artie Beetson,
So cool.
that was unreal. Like Artie,
Yeah.
like me and my wife now, we actually lived with Artie for 3-4 months when I moved to the Roosters.
Yeah.
So yeah, he
Wow.
actually put us in the granny flat at the back, and so we got to live there. And he did
What
that
a
for
memory.
he's done that for a host of players, like
Yeah.
Hodjo and Joey Williams and a few other lads too. He's done it for. They whenever there's someone comes to the club and they need a bit of a helping hand, he'd always put his hand out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love Artie,
Beautiful.
mate. I loved him. He was so good, and he was hilarious too because he was set in his ways in a few little things. So.
Right.
He'd say, if you're going to boil the kettle and use it, that's fine, but make sure you fill it straight back up. So
Yep.
the kettle always had to be full. So, yeah, no
Yep.
worries. And if it wasn't full, he'd come out the back door, Doyle, come out and he'd go, what did I tell you about this kettle? Sorry, Artie, I'll come and fill it up now. Too late, I already done it. So,
Oh,
but
pop
he
it on
was,
there, will you?
yeah, but he was so good to live with. And he had this dog. What's its name was Major or something, but it was old too, and it had no teeth, and whatever teeth it did have, it couldn't chew with them anyway. So we had to look after it one weekend for him, and he's making us cut up like luncheon meat. We had to cut that up into little squares for it, and so we could eat properly. But it was so clever. Like he'd take it for a walk, he'd drive along with the wagon, had the back up, and
Yep.
that he just drove really slowly alongside the dog while it was walking on the footpath. And when it finished, when it finished walking, it was ready. It'd jump in the back, and then he'd just put the hood down and take off. That's how we walked it. And me and my wife, we
Drive the
thought,
dog.
yeah.
Oh,
So me and my wife, because he was smart, the dog, he'd come and grab you by the hand and drag you out to the fence, or he'd get your shoes for you. He could open
yep.
the doors and everything. Yeah, so we thought, yeah,
Awesome.
we'll take him for a walk, And Artie warned us about it, but we thought, nah, he'd be right. We took it for a walk, and we went too far and too long, and this thing just bailed up and just dropped down on the footpath, and I was trying to drag it, trying to pick it up, and then we'd have to sit there for 10, 15 minutes, walk a little bit more, sit down again, and an hour walk took about 4 hours. It was yeah, never again. Every,
Take the car next time.
yeah, every time we wanted to walk, I was like, "Nah, you can wait for your dad." But it was
Oh,
good,
mate.
good experiences, but.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. So, when you look back at your career, what was that one pinnacle moment for you that stood out above the rest?
Um, Really, I really enjoyed, I suppose, the fact that I got to play State of Origin, and my dad, he's since passed now, but he was there, so he got to watch me reach that pinnacle.
Yeah.
And like it was as much as, and my dad was a really good footballer, he had a bit of a raw deal when he was younger. He sort of got he was getting racially taunted in the under 18s rep team, and then by a teammate, and it come to blows, and my dad gave him a hide, and so then they actually made my dad hitchhike home from the town that they were going down to play. So it's a 4 or 5 hour trip, and he had to hitchhike, go through his gear off the bus. So he never really got to experience or go to the pinnacle, in his career because he was sort of blacklisted.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was really, it meant a lot to me because he was my first role model, and my first favorite player in the world was my dad.
Okay.
And my dad he was a fullback, and he was a gun fullback, and I wanted to be a fullback because my dad was,
Okay.
So, and he's the reason, like I was really, like attention to detail with my techniques and things like that, even though, like I said, by the end of it, I didn't care. In the last 2 years, I was just running in and trying to smash anyone with any part of my body. I didn't care, but my technique was so good, defensively and also with the ball and stuff like that because of him. He'd drill me out in the yard with it all the time, so he'd set up like the old bird ovary, the half circle thing. He hang the bird cage in. That was my target to pass through, so
right.
that sort of stuff. And he taught me the technique, how to tackle, where to put your head, your body positioning. Like, even though I was ruining his mango tree, he never stopped me from kicking into it, So it was all of his training and his attitude towards me achieving and succeeding that, it's why I did what I did, it's why I got to where I got to. And I know that my dad probably could have achieved the same if given the chance. So it was kind of like to reach to first, obviously play first grade, and then to play like that Australian Aboriginal team, and then to play that Queensland team. Like, they were really big defining moments for me and my father. It was really good to share it with him,
Oh, mate, I bet you miss him. I bet you miss him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's a great story, though. Right, man. So I'm going to finish with a couple of fun questions I ask everyone. I normally ask what club you support, but we know now it's the Raiders. Being Alan is Raiders, so fair
Green
enough.
Machine. Yeah.
Right. So, what's your favorite TV show or series of all time?
Oh, all time. Jeez. I'm anything that's superhero, DC and Marvel. I'm literally a big nerd. So anything superhero, DC, Marvel, I'm in.
Yep. All right, man.
Yeah.
All right. We'll put them all together for you. Right. Last question. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably right now, probably pizza.
Love a good pizza.
Oh,
What's your topic? What's your topic?
pepperoni.
Oh, simple.
Me and my 3 boys, we have pizza night every Wednesday night.
Yep.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so the wife's not real fan of it, but she got to get her own dinner. So Wednesday night I'm cooking. Wednesday night I'm cooking, and it's Pizza Hut.
Beautiful. I'm a meat lovers guy. Just slap any meat on it.
Yeah.
Cover it in barbecue sauce. I'm very happy.
Well, my middle son, he's a meat lover's kid, but he takes most of the meat off. I don't get it.
So
that's what I said to him. What do you? Yeah. But yeah, he loves meat lovers. And
there's now a cheese pizza.
Yeah, exactly. And you buy cheese pizza, they won't eat it.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Absolute treat to meet you and hear all the stories. And really, really cool actually learning about you and your father. I think that's been a wonderful takeaway for me. So thanks so much, man.
No, I appreciate it, bro. Thanks for having me on. It was when you asked me, I was pretty pumped. I was saying to my wife, he actually wants me on the show. I can't believe he wants me on the show. Why does he want me on the show? So I was pretty pumped, to actually be able to come on here and have a talk to you and that. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. I love it. I show people all the time and I share it, and it's really good to see and hear, some of the stories and the ex-players and stuff like that. So what you're doing is really good for our community. So I appreciate you too, brother. So thanks.
Thanks so much, man. Mate, you play State of Origin. Of course, you come on the show. You're a legend, mate. Thanks so much. And thanks to everyone for watching and listening out there. I've been your host, Dave. This has been the great Malcolm John Doyle. We've been back in the day, and we'll see you next time for Kickoff.
Full time.